All right, welcome everyone. Thanks for joining this February meeting of Complex System Contemplative Studies community. Today we're gonna have Eric Lacosse tell us about alternatives to doing good, solid research, alternatives to academia, what is out there, what money is out there, but more important than money, just what opportunities there are to really do solid, groundbreaking research that sometimes even academic environment can be stifling in ways. So as per our usual structure, we'll start with a little mindfulness meditation to come together as a community on ground. And Joshua volunteered to lead that today. Is that cool? Yeah. Still good. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So let's jump into that.
Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. I very much appreciate it. Um, a practice I do regularly is a breathing exercise called Kapalabhati, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and if you want to join me, I welcome you to do so. So it's a breathing exercise where you breathe in through your stomach 10% and then on a rhythmic um, in a rhythmic way breathe out. I will demonstrate and you can follow me, and during the practice I will give some guidelines as to how we can continue. um, I myself close my eyes. You do as you seem fit. So we start with a few in and out breaths. Deep in breath. Out breath. And fill your belly up 10%. And then go tack, tack, tack. Releasing the air of the belly. In and out. In and out. Connected breathing now. In, out, in, out, and hold at the bottom. Hold. Breathe in, stay at the top. Out. Let the breath come naturally and observe. Okay, I invite you to do it one more time with me. So we will breathe in and out a few times deeply. And then, as we did, breathe out, in 10%, and then out, in. Purely letting the belly and the diaphragm move. Few deep in and out breaths. In, out. 10% in. Tuck, 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 tuck. Connected breathing. Deep in breath. Out. Deep in. Out. Stay at the bottom. Stay. Deep in breath. Stay at the top. Breathe out. Let the breath come naturally and observe. All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining me. Very grateful.
Thank you. Thanks. So with that, I guess we're going to transition to presentation. So we scheduled this for an hour and a half. Does anyone need to leave early, or just to have a sense of can everyone stay? We'll have a couple announcements at the end and some questions that would be nice to have everyone for. Get some feedback. Okay, so then let's get into the talk and discussion part. So, Eric?
Great. Yeah, I'm gonna figure out how to share
away.
screen here.
Maybe also you can introduce yourself a little bit.
Yes, yeah.
You have a fun position in this life.
Okay. Can everybody see my screen?
Nope.
No? It
Nope.
says it.
Really?
Yeah.
Everybody should have same permissions here because it's not moderated. So just try maybe stopping and starting again.
No?
No?
Not yet.
Yes.
Oh, I think it's good.
Yep.
Okay. Great. I have a little bit of an unconventional slide deck here today. I made it in a board, a Figma board, so it's a bit different. But yeah, I mean, I can take notes and things on it. So also, I mean, it goes without saying, but the idea of organizing this presentation, which was sort of prefaced by Pavel, was to make this kind of an active discussion. So I have some moments where we have some questions, and we can discuss some of the topics that those questions raise. So that's my idea of the structure of this presentation. So please don't hesitate to just jump right in and say what you're saying is complete nonsense, or I completely agree with that, and I have some examples or whatever. So a little bit about myself. So I've been in and out of academia, and I've probably had a kind of unconventional track, I would say. In fact, I think part of what makes this community is sort of how we relate to one another, in that sense of sort of being a misfit in the traditional system, and we're just sort of trying to find our way in some kind of alternative to do, whether it's great research or build something unconventional, or do great work with other people. We're really all trying to find our place in that. And I think I'm not speaking for everybody, but I sense that we're really trying to find a home, and so this is my sense making of that home, and in just trying to see that through a lens of where I see particularly AI, which is like sort of in my lifetime I've never seen something take hold the way it has and completely transform the way people work, and that's both exciting and terrifying. And I mean, I tend to think of it maybe way more exciting. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a force that's really going to change knowledge work, obviously, and I think the institutions will have to respond as a consequence of that. So I'm seeing things through the lens there, not only because I'm biased and I work in tech and that kind of thing. So again, coming back to a little bit about me. So right now I work at the Champalimaud Foundation, which is a oncology clinic, private foundation in Lisbon, Portugal. And there's basically a research arm and a clinical arm. And in the research arm is focused on oncology and computational neuroscience. And there's different specializations that the foundation focuses on in the clinical arm. We'll discuss those. But it's a bit of an unconventional place. It's a new place. It's been around for like 20 odd years. So, when the original people who founded this, at least the institute I'm associated with, which is the neuroscience program, and this new institute that my boss is leading, called the Center for Restorative Neurotechnology, is sort of, it was intended to really challenge some of the academic structures. So this is kind of what originally brought me here. And yeah, and before that, I was working in a deep tech startup doing brain-computer interfaces. And before that, I was doing my PhD at the Max Planck Institutes in Tübingen, Germany, at the Max Planck Institute for Intelligent Systems and Biological Cybernetics. So I've seen, I've also been in the US, I did my undergrad in the US. I've been through different institutions in the US. So I feel like, I've seen kind of a few places. Last year I went to IMDP, which is what Mathieu is leading, and what Pavel organized last year in mindfulness co-working, and that was really cool. That was also a very alternative institution that I think is really exciting and brings an alternative perspective about where people can find their place. So yeah, maybe let me begin.
And do you have a sense of
I'm going to begin with it.
You're shooting for, so I can keep you on track, if you want.
Yeah. So maybe just cut me off when I'm going to try to get through this in maybe like maybe 30 minutes or so. But I mean, it depends on like where the discussions go. But
yeah. No, just so we have some discussion time, because I think we have
yeah,
like
but
45 minutes total from this point on. So
okay.
So
yeah, let me just say I'm not an impartial observer. I'm looking through this with a very specific lens. My background is in math, computer science, and later neuroscience, and now I work with language models and cognitive science and build technology. So I'm kind of highly biased towards speed, technology, and impact over any kind of academic traditions. So if you love the current academic tenure system and you think it's working flawlessly, you're probably going to hate everything I say. Okay. And let me begin with a quote, maybe, of something I read when I was in grad school. I mean, Freeman Dyson said this in an interview about 16 odd years ago or 20 years ago. And he basically he rails against the PhD system. So he goes, "Oh yes, I'm proud of not having a PhD. I think the PhD system is an abomination. It was invented as a system for educating German professors in the 19th century, and it works well under those conditions. It's good for a very small number of people who are going to spend their lives being professors, but has become now a kind of union card that you have to have in order to have a job, whether it's being a professor or other things, and it's quite inappropriate for that. It forces people to waste years and years of their lives sort of pretending to do research for which they're not at all well suited. In the end, they have this piece of paper which says they're qualified, but it doesn't really mean anything. The PhD takes far too long and discourages women from becoming scientists, which I consider a great tragedy. So I have opposed it all my life without any success at all." And this is coming from one of the most successful scientists. And when I read that, I thought like, oh my gosh, like, why am I doing a PhD? Like, and I mean, he you look at his children, George Dyson and Esther Dyson. Esther Dyson works in technology. I think she's an investor. George Dyson is a historian of technology. Both don't have PhDs like Freeman. Freeman also never got his PhD. So people have been railing against the PhD system, and I think they have good reason to. And when I look at the system for educating scientists, it kind of resembles something like this. We have the Lord, which is usually the principal investigator with money that hires you, and then he gives you some land, which is the lab, and then in the lab you tend to the fields at the university or whatever, and the people tending to the fields are the junior scientists who are paid for by the Lord, and then they're creating these papers for the tribute, for the prestige, and that kind of feeds this cycle, and it's a slow cycle, but drains the junior scientists are. People are complaining about that. People complain about mental health issues in science and doing a PhD. The system sort of has its deficits clearly. It's not only Freeman Dyson laying that out. And like, I don't know. I mean, the longer I stay and or observe things, the more it starts. It's the more I feel it kind of resembles this kind of structure. And sort of now Nano Banana 2 just came out, so I had a lot of fun generating images, and I just asked it to take a AI wrecking ball to this. And why do I see that? It's like if today, for example, in the lab space that I'm working in, there's not a single student or junior scientist there that doesn't have a tab open that is actively conversing with an AI. And you think about this in the context of receiving mentorship, how advanced these AI tools have come in terms of being able to execute work that normally took a while. like I don't even know what's going on in terms of the wet lab stuff and how AI is being adopted there for this kind of in the way that resembles something like the software tooling that's developing that I'm familiar with. But I hear there's a lot going on in terms of that. But my overall feeling is that like AI is really challenging this kind of structure overall, and I'm going to talk a bit about that concretely. Yeah, and so in an effort to also make the junior scientists a little bit more happy, I asked I asked it to update the image here, and now you see all the junior scientists rejoicing, and because they've destroyed these structures that maybe some of them find oppressive. And yeah, I mean, it's no wonder that a lot of junior scientists find the system impressive, because I mean, for every 20 PhD students, right, there's one that's going to become a principal investigator. I mean, there's a lot of reasons why that is, but yeah, I mean, it doesn't make for a, let's say, optimistic career track for many of these junior scientists. Yeah. So kind of the first discussion point is like maybe considering like, was the PI mentee relationship fundamentally broken? How will that change now in a world dominated by AI? Meaning like, if all junior scientists are able to get expert level menteeship, like, or they can get their ideas and papers reviewed by an AI, and that review, right, can be superior in many ways to what the PI mentorship relationship should be. What happens? What happens to the trust network of academia when we don't need large labs or the guild to think of and execute big ideas? So maybe we can, I don't know, maybe discuss some of this if we'd like. Otherwise, I can move on. How do you want to go?
I mean, I just want to voice a couple of my own ideas and then see if anyone else wants to vibe for me. But yeah, first, I'm generally kind of opposed to that last image, just because of the destruction and fire and brimstone and all of this, and in some way, it's like yeah, the I don't know, not a huge fan of violence as a way of transformation and transforming the systems. Violence, against systems is still violence, even if it's not against people. So there's something of I would rather see like find an system and see how we can bring that out and suppress the problems, because a lot of the things do work, rather than just try to build from scratch. Maybe being from Soviet Union, I have a bit of a bias towards, like revolutions don't lead to anything good, but
right.
And yeah, and for the trust networks, still, of course, right. For now, there is a gap between what human PIs can do and AIs can do, right? So AIs are still like hallucinating. They're not that smart. They're not that accurate. So I don't know, right? Of course, when PI is like never available, and AI is much better, right? But there is still that guild structure that academia has, with trickling down trust through trusted institutions and all of that, and having this academic parents, right? Like your academic father or mother, your PI, right? Or academic lineage, right? Advisor of your advisor, somehow carries a huge amount of impact on scientists' careers. And so, yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like, I don't know, maybe it's a matter of once AI will replace us entirely. So, but as it stands right now, yeah, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think I mean some of the feedback I get from students is often like the criticism they get from AIs are more constructive than, or in some of the ideas that they construct with AIs are more constructive than what the PIs are able to facilitate. But I mean, of course, it really depends on the kind of relationship that you have and the kind the PI in general. But I think there is a challenge, right? And I think maybe there's I see that continuing to become challenged more and more.
If we go back to your... Go ahead.
No, go for it. No, go ahead, Jeff.
If we go back to the kind of 4 players you had there, the students giving documents, the fruits of their labor to gain prestige. I mean, maybe I've been thinking about, automation in science, and if the goal is just to produce documents and gain a prestige, then yeah, it can be maybe hard to see, like, well, why should I spend time having conversations with my mentor if I have to, bring him up to speed and he's forgetting things because he has a lot of projects. But in that time that I spend, I'm also and working a problem out, even if I could just get a quick answer, I'm also being shaped and I'm learning about the process because I'm a human with emotions, and my mentor is maybe able also to, I'm building trust with my mentor, and my mentor is able also maybe to have a vision of how my whole kind of personality is coming together, not just only on certain kind of technical answers or things that are communicated through text. And in the academic environment where there's a long time and a kind of tribe relationship, able to, people go to meetings, they socialize together, that can sometimes be missing, I think, in an AI era where it's almost like a more gig setup where I can appear here and I can go there and I can do a quick project here and I can chase after some money here. And so, yeah, like, how do we also have a community built around process and long time frames, and with a sense of security that everyone here is, the thing they're doing is they're being a graduate student or they're being a professor. That's their main thing going on right now. And they're not just going to maybe disappear, or if they are, there's someone else who can come in and provide that supervisor relationship to me, or if a student disappears, I have a constant input of students coming, and I can rely on that and stick with the problem for a long period of time. So I think that that those are some good things that academia can have going for it, that I research institutions. But in Canada, I'm from Vancouver, Canada. We don't have a lot of research institutions compared with places in Europe and the United States.
Mm. Yeah, I think you make some fantastic points there. That sort of like, I mean, one thing is, like, it's cognitively exhausting to just be constantly talking to an AI. I mean, people are just not going to want that, right? They want this kind of community, right? A real community with people around them to support them and to, feel like they're getting shaped by something that, is not even necessarily like entirely knowledge work related, but like just, developing as a human, right? Like, so I see your points, and I mean, when I'm just sort of observing things from I don't want to say like let's get rid of this structure. I mean, there's a lot of great things about it. I should have said that. And
one of the things I've done is just like have the tab open with someone else. We're working on the whiteboard, and if we get stuck, we right away prompt something, and it's some statistical identity, and then we get a bit forward in the proof, and we can go much faster. So it's like, it's not something that takes me away from that input, right? If someone's struggling for something, we just quickly search it, and then we keep going and we keep progressing, and we make more progress. And then there's still that satisfaction that, okay, I'm kind of sharing this with someone else, we're building something together, we can keep each other accountable, and we can work on it for a long period of time and have that momentum.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's like my what I like more than programming with an AI is actually do pair programming with humans. It's like it's a lot more fun and it's less exhausting actually. But like exactly for the reasons that you're talking about. And I think like having a mechanism where you can have, for example, an AI interact with both, with two people, not just one person, right? And thinking through like how would that look like? How would that be, optimal? How would that, you know, uh, be developed, right? I think it's really exciting to think about those things. Yeah.
There were some thoughts in the chat.
Yeah, I guess I'll be brief, but like I feel like I'm experiencing all this in my life right now. So much, particularly within this week, trying to put together some like like funding stuff and grants, sort of like with AI, and just realizing that like, man, yeah, everybody is definitely using this and shaping their proposals off this. And as like an early career researcher, I guess, it really got me thinking about this like publication culture, which is, sort of the dominant way of progressing or becoming an academic or whatever. So this is a question that
Oh, you're muted.
this is a question that I kind of, or that I think sort of puts together some of these things, which is just about kind of imagining like academic writing or academic discourse based on what LLMs can do, with this kind of relevance focus. Because I don't know, this idea of like making relevant knowledge or like relevance is kind of becoming more interesting for me. But yeah, I just kind of wanted to add that really quick. And it's just, I feel like I'm really experiencing all these things firsthand.
Do you have of writing that might be a bit different than what people are used to? That's closer to what you have in mind.
Good question. Yeah, that is a good question.
Is it more poetic? Is it less linear?
Yeah, right. I mean, there's a lot of like interesting examples on Substack, I guess. Somebody that's pretty good, I feel like, that can like write about complex topics in a less academic way is like Nate Higgins, for example. It's pretty good. I guess it's a little more, the funny thing is like the fact that LLMs can like reproduce academic writing sort of shows in a way that academic writing is like pretty robotic. So like writing that isn't robotic, I guess. So I guess maybe it depends on the person's style. Maybe a little more poetic, and I feel like it could really depend. That's kind of the question I'm interested in checking out, I guess. Like what would that kind of writing look like?
I think it's a good segue to continue from there, because one of the ideas I'd like to kind of project is like if it's like it becomes so easy to just produce papers and write in an academic way and communicate those results in that way, then like that, well, one, I'm going to say, describe what's happening now is that there's just going to be a flood of papers, right? Like it's just we're going to be overwhelmed with papers, and this is definitely the case now, right? Because it's just so, I mean, it's cheap to produce now, right? In some sense, so I mean, if we look, where's my? If we look at sort of within AI conference submissions, like these, these are the sort of premier conferences for AI, machine learning particularly. And I mean, they're just skyrocketing. And I mean, this is not even, if we go to this year in ICML, which was, the deadline was for submissions was in January, ICML has now over 30,000 submissions, right? 30,000. It's like, I was at NeurIPS in December, which is one of these huge machine learning conferences, and there were over 30,000 people. It's kind of crazy. So, I mean, it's like, first of all, I can't, as a researcher, I can't even compete. I can't, make sense of all these papers that come out. I mean, every day my inbox is just filled with Google alerts and digests and things like that of papers, and I'm just like absolutely exhausted. I can't keep up. And I haven't really even figured out a way to filter, right, because I'm afraid I'm going to miss something, and so I don't see this trend debating at all. So people are sort of speculating the reviewer is dead, and they're thinking about different ways that peer review can be implemented. Specifically, one thing that I noted, I just got a paper 2 days ago, and reading the feedback, I'm like, this guy used AI, definitely. Like it sounds like they just fed my paper and then asked a queried LLM to give a critique about it. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. It's just these tools are going to have to be adopted, and the institutions and organizations and conferences are going to be needing to come up with ways to incorporate these tools to make this work. But then that kind of leaves an open problem, which is if you have more papers being published, then it's like me as a human trying to digest this. Even with an AI trying to help me understand those papers, I'm still going to feel overwhelmed. So my point, and here's another example of the Association of Advancement of Artificial Intelligence is adopting a pilot peer review assessment system. My whole point is and what Matthew was saying, he likes the Substack. It's like maybe the currency is going to move away from these papers into blog posts, Substacks, non-peer review outlets, or more radically, maybe what academics are going to aim for is not necessarily papers, but something entirely different. Maybe different kinds of artifacts. Like can you build something with the ideas that you've proposed, right? Like new technology, for instance, to sort of work up to that idea. But another example that impacts things I see is one of this new optimizer. Normally neural networks are trained using stochastic gradient descent or ADAM, and then since 2024 this new optimizer was proposed. It didn't come through a paper, it came through somebody's blog post, and now this has sort of become a de facto thing. So papers, especially in the machine learning community, are not the primary and most impactful mediums that these ideas are being communicated in. So some questions to ask, maybe is peer review fundamentally broken now that we maybe LLMs are going to offer better critiques, or that we have this situation with the number of papers that are being published. So yeah, if it becomes extremely easy to generate paper. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, it's a great question to bring up. Is peer review broken? I think peer review can happen at different scales. Like for these large conferences like NeurIPS and ICML and stuff, the peer review is heavily anonymous and a huge pool. In specialized domain journals and smaller, peer review is maybe more akin to how peer review was started in the Royal Society's era, where there's a pool of dozens of people, and you don't know, but you kind of know that you know the possibility to be guess backwards. I've found that the type of feedback I have gotten from circulating manuscripts about to be submitted to friends and colleagues that aren't on that paper, but they're in my field and published for sort of the internal review, is extremely high quality. And that I've read, especially in some recent sort of egregious cases where the peer review system, because it's anonymous, the reviewer doesn't really want to review. They we have no strong desire for the betterment of this work. They're sort of justifying, I'll just write the minimal amount to do this research duty because I have to for the conference, or they're blatantly self-serving, like you definitely have to cite this work, and there's a huge body of work and they only mention one, and you're wondering, is that because it's yours and it's something obscure? And so it's journals like Think Transactions in machine learning research, CMLR, are trying to have new incentives where they cut out kind of a large publishing house and have more direct, streamlined, okay, here we're going to use a open review or some open source or some kind, I don't know if it's open source, but it's just sort of some transparent mechanism. And we're going to have some incentives so that you give good reviews, like you get a community badge and people can see, oh, this person gets very good reviews. Maybe actually their papers are very good. And so then there's some intrinsic incentive to write good reviews, or maybe there's some money, or maybe there's something, right? Or maybe your article's featured, or your name's mentioned, and it's not anonymous because it's a career incentive for people that are more junior. And so I think there's this play in between anonymity and really having bonds with the people in your field that you're part of a small conversation of. That's important to keep our kind of our limitations and how many people we can hold in our mind and really feel a connection with over time and maintain a connection with over time.
Yeah, I think those are fantastic points, and like I would wish like we could, there could be some kind of better relationship that develops with reviewers in that sense of like, and I think like where they intrinsically want to help your paper and there's a community behind it, and I think that if and I think like when I see these initiatives coming from different journals, like you pointed out, I think those are great ways that it's kind of like adapting and being shaped. I don't really have much more to add on that.
Yeah, I can say something, but I also want to give a chance to others who maybe don't speak so much. Thoughts? Yes. Someone?
Can you hear me?
Yes?
Tanuja? Let's see what they can you hear us?
I don't know who needs to go next.
I think it's you. You, Tanuja. Yeah.
It's me? Okay. So, Eric, you have been a part of several very prestigious organizations. Now, what I like about the idea of research or scientific thinking coming also outside of academia is the fact that science is really just the application of logic to natural phenomena, and that can come from anywhere. Even some very young children have wonderful. But my question is, what kind of structure can we give scientific research such that these thoughts coming from outside of academia can receive the kind of I wouldn't call it peer review, but collaborative sounding boards. You see, right now, the way research seems to work is an individual studies past research, publishes a new idea, and then it's a winner takes all. So I'd like to see us move towards a more collaborative, global scientific research methodology, whether it's inside academia or outside.
That's a great point. And do you find that some of the, for example, Substack or other social media online provide some of that platform for that to happen? Or do you think it's also, more of that winner take all dynamic? People become viral, and somebody's GitHub repository gets 10,000 stars because it's the same kind of dynamics. It's like winner take all. Or I think it's kind of interesting to think about.
It's still winner take all, but also see how it's not just about virality. So let's say a Substack article gains a lot of attention. It has lots of very solid points. So maybe for a few years, it gets a lot of attention, gets implemented. And then somebody finds one error. And when that error is found, that entire article is knocked out. So it's winner take all, a gladiator type thing. Instead of saying 9 out of 10 of their points was wonderful, 1 was wrong. How can we rejigger the 9 such that it is not dependent on that one assumption? What would it look like to take it forward?
On the topic, I would note that there's an interesting case with Terence Tao and the mathematics community. They're full on using partially human, partially AI collaborations, critique, etc. So on his blog, he has some good examples of this kind of process, collaborative with some humans and some AI on lists of established problems. I think it's a good source.
Yes, I've heard he's writing a lot about, or he's being interviewed a lot about AI use in the mathematics community. So that's really interesting. Yeah.
We have about 15 minutes left, so I don't know how much material you have to get through, Eric.
Just one more slide round here, and that's kind of what I wanted to build up to was like, okay, so it seems like there's challenges to the system. There's good things going on. There's bad things going on. AI is really fundamentally reshaping some of these institutions, in my view, or they're creating new kinds of demands. And I identified one particular kind of institutional structure that's emerging that I see sort of taking more of a hold. And I just, it's just something concrete as that potentially might resolve some of these tensions and challenges. And that's a focused research organization, FRO. So maybe you've heard of this already, but I find the structure fascinating because when I look at sort of at least in my field, the top research seems to be being done mostly by large corporate labs which were originally research startups. So you think about, for example, or now Google DeepMind, right? And those structures are very different. And the way that they're able to execute research is very different than academic environments. And that's mostly because of the kinds of structures that they've optimized for executing that kind of research, which involves a lot of engineering, a lot of money, right? There's when you think, for example, building these language models, there's only a handful of people in the world that are essentially doing that at the scale that becomes world leading. And so I look and I keep on seeing focused research organizations come up, and so that's why I'm discussing it now. And sort of they sit between this sweet spot between academic institutions, startups, and corporations, and basically it's a focused of 5 to 7 years that's well funded, that is basically intends to produce some kind of intellectual property that can be incorporated into another entity, like another company, institution. Area would be the best example of something that's directly come from the government, that's focused on these kinds of structures. Futures, philanthropic one. And then just recently, December 12th, NSF announced that it's going to not announce a new initiative, scale, these kinds of FROs. So they're barely being taken seriously, and this is, in the U.S. So money is being diverted into these kinds of new entities where you have these small teams concentrated on solving some kind of technological challenge. So here's the last slide I have. So now that these government entities are funding alternative institutions rather than philanthropy, how will this accelerate in reshaping traditional academic institutions? Will they adapt appropriately to FROs, address the problems seen in current institutions sufficiently? What problems do you want solved for your own career, but more broadly for science? So are these new entities really solving these issues? Yeah, and so it'd be interesting to hear some feedback on that, or some discussion inspired from that. But that basically wraps up what I had in mind in discussing. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have to leave now.
I mean,
but thanks a lot, Eric.
Sorry?
I was just saying, I'm sorry, I have to leave now, but thanks a lot, Eric. I think that was very interesting.
Thank you for being here.
Eric, can you go back to the previous slide, please?
Yeah.
So my focus area is medicine. And so we have a lot of, I'm sorry, one more, please. The one with the FRO.
This one.
Yes. So we have a lot of corporate research for pharmaceuticals and different kinds of surgical techniques. Then that moves on to hospital staff or legislators. That's the tightly coordinated focus team. And it produces knowledge. But there's so much, I'm going to say there's so much money involved that I'm surprised in this conversation we haven't really talked about money yet. So it's arguable, and there's a lot written, that reliance on the pharmaceutical industry to produce our information is impeding the discussion of other types of medical practices like behavioral medicine, prevention, that kind of thing, because there's so much money. The money is really the driver.
Yeah.
So when I see corporation, I don't immediately think that it's going to help, but having a product that's valuable is definitely a good out. But there's a sort of inertia that's created because there's so much money to be made in some of these ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's the massive elephant in the room, right? Like, I mean, having not, it's not like I've won massive grants or anything like it. So I'm not qualified to really talk at that level. Just, I'm just sort of seeing things in a particular lens of sort of like a soldier on the ground floor, kind of thing. But yeah, I mean, maybe this. So I don't really have a constructive way of weaving in sort of where, like, how money influences all of this, other than, yes, obviously, like all these, the reason why these things exist is just the massive amount of money that's pouring into, or it can be funneled out of this, like Astera, right? Like, a lot of this is like crypto money, or Schmidt is obviously Eric Schmidt from Google, who's a billionaire. It's like, yeah, and what are their incentives, and how, yeah, it's hard, but like at the end of the day, I think I remind myself of this kind of captures some of the other points too. Is like, what is science about? Like, I think like the big picture in science for me is like what enhances our human flourishing. Yeah. And if that means a product, you know, so be it. Like there can be meaningful, you know, products that, you know, rely on fundamentally, you know, science that changes people's lives, and so I don't, you know, I don't see clear you know, the need for clear categories between like, you know, science and products, science and tech development, science and, you know, pure research, basic research. I see these sort of, you know, hopefully serving the wider purpose of, you know, just enhancing our human flourishing, and whatever way that comes in, I'm totally partial to. Yeah.
Thanks. And I wasn't being negatively critical. I just was surprised. Like I thought we would talk more about money. Thanks.
I think some of the ways forward and new opportunities point to it's like, isn't that what a university should have been? And it points to the kind of structural problems of the university. And I just posted this talk from Michael Ryle, who used to be in Rotman School of Business in Toronto and went down to another university in Florida. And he talks about the silver lining in higher ed's perfect storm. And he talks about just the phenomena after World War II, the GI Bill, building out, having more student tuition, larger spaces, and over the incentive structure, students really getting admitted, feeling overwhelmed with some of the content or wanting that certificate, and really demanding and putting pressure to make things easier. These are MBA students or business students in a kind of you know, expensive business, prestigious business program at the University of Toronto. And then they get out in the job market, no one's hiring them. And the consulting firms come and they say, yeah, you know, if it's pretty tough out there, if sometimes we get, you know, students that are quite not that resilient, not that don't have initiative, have too much of a victim mindset, and those students, yeah, I mean, they're coming from your program, and instead we're just hiring all the engineers.
Yeah.
And they really blunted feedback. And it's, you know, how is the university, the program? I mean, they're getting lots of more students coming, and they're getting tuition, and they're having all the right metrics of international students and exchanges, and in the end, it's not really making an educated person who can contribute and flourish and go out there and kind of boldly apply their skills, and
right, and
something sort of missing with that king and the incentive structure, and it's something's broken in the loop. And so he within all of that, he basically says that's the perfect storm, and there's a silver lining of really leaning in and taking advantage of all the resources, challenging yourself. So yeah, I keep thinking back to that, of this kind of vision of what the university could have been, should have been, might still become. And all groups, I mean, in the end, won't they just also have problems? People could unionize within them. There would be different tugs of wars, and a lot of these problems could just come back also.
Yeah, I feel like it's a great point. Yeah, I think you know, the people leading these FROs initially came from, you know, billionaires wanting and seeing the problems of university and being like, no, we need a totally different way of doing things, right? And they're like, we're giving up on the university. You know, this is the new thing, right? This is how this is going to change the world, right? And yeah, I don't you know, I hear kind of a lot about what it is that you're saying, like, you know, like really frustrated new grads not being able to find jobs and whatnot. And it's like, well, university is kind of failing them in some sense, you know? And so what's, you know, something needs to give, like, or maybe people need to adjust their expectations, or I don't know. I don't know. But, you know, like, honestly, when I look at these FROs, I think like, okay, this is where the leading edge stuff is going to be done. And, you know, this is where the money is going. This is where top researchers are going. This is, you know, and people are going to flock. But then, you know, at some point, maybe those also have problems that are the same problems that universities have. I don't know.
So a little bit opposed to this perspective that I hear kind of in this talk of like, okay, academia is broken, we need to replace it with this other thing that's better, right? Because almost like in the spirit of this community, complexity science and everything, right? I think any system that positions any one thing as the solution is wrong, right? So we can't try to like. So for me, what I would like to see is academia serves its target audience, its purpose, whatever. These pros are another small piece of the puzzle, but what I'm almost wanting is just more awareness and maybe expansion of the number of options, right? And the point is there are already a lot of options out there. It's just most of the time, if you're in academia, you're sort of like hidden. You're told that once you leave academia, it's a scary, dangerous, and sad world out there. And then, a lot of people, when they leave academia, they realize it's actually a lot better, outside that bunker that they've been sheltered in. And so I think it's not about replacing one thing with another thing that's better, but it's about really creating an ecosystem, an ecology of different sorts of ways you can have a career in science, right? And there is already that. It's just, I think there's very little awareness of the fact that you already have a ton of options, right? There is philanthropist grants, there's these like crypto billionaires, whatever, right? Who like angel investors who are willing to fund idea logically sort of fund different research that appeals to them on a value sense. Then there is like research startup field where it's funded by investors, by venture, by whatever, but it has a research, like a strong research and IP generation slant to it. Even just pure theoretical research, even crowd-funded, right? There are these institutes that accept donations and somehow manage to survive based on just donations, right? They're sort of private, independent researchers who do, some side gig to make money and do research as their kind of main thing without really getting paid, right? For that specifically. And there are examples in each one of those niches. There are examples of like very successful people who have done a lot, right? So all of these are in principle feasible options. To me, the point is just like, how do we make these a little more accessible, like raise awareness that you don't have to be in academia, and really like create that ecosystem, make it more intertwined so that there's like more respect and peer review sort of sounding boards in all these.
Yeah, I mean, I did.
It's a really good point you make, Pavel, about if one kind of part tries to take too much on of the whole. And we can't expect the university to do everything, and each different component has a role to play. I think that like I've come across in a more critique of corporate environments where the corporation through corporate maternalism is trying to do too much, have the chef, have the social environment, have the personal mentor, have the fitness coach, and there's no more third place. And so when people have a massive layoff, there's the whole life is destabilized. Like Carolyn Chen wrote about this in Work Code Pray, when work becomes religion in Silicon Valley. And I've always thought, although she didn't talk about it in that book, I've always thought, like, is the university trying to do too much? Right? Give lots of support and have counseling and embedded mental health support, and those are all good things. But in the end, then people feel like unable to leave and are really afraid of leaving and not resilient and able to kind of go forth and then there's not a strong alumni network where people have been trained intensively and then go out there and like to get together because they drag and get out of sync with each other, and it just becomes this kind of individual consuming education, consuming courses. People make this pejoratively call my University of British Columbia, UBC. They call it "You Bring the Cash." It's this degree factory. And so I also feel like, is that the university's incentive? And there's also, in Canada, it's not so clear of like private and public as it is in the US, but the province's flagship university. So there's tons of public money that comes in. And in the end, the province and also the federal government has to see, like, is this really contributing to having a cohesive society and taking care of people and serving the common good. And yeah, and there's like recent headlines of like massive restrictions of student visas for international students from the government, and big layoffs, not so much in this university, but smaller colleges. So the landscape's kind of really shifting, and things don't seem that sustainable from that standpoint.
So I want to wrap us up here, so we have time to do a few announcements. Does somebody have some last words or points to say real quick on any of this?
I just want to respond real quickly to one of the comments. Why do people, from the perspective of a reviewer, what do I get out of reviewing a paper? And it's just joy. It's excitement about what new people are doing. It's like, I love what I do. So to see other people put those ideas together in another way. But there are, as you mentioned, there are incentive systems, like you can be named as an editor on a particular journal. And so for academic advancement, you can use it in that way. But personally, it's just, I enjoy doing it.
Yay. That's the incentives we're going for. Joy. All right. Yeah. Thanks, Eric, for, I don't know, bringing it up. I like the structure of, like AI is breaking things. What are the deliverables and values and publication? And then going into like, what are the solutions? What systems and structures can we create or are created that are now alternatives? So I think, yeah, those are a lot of discussions on those.
Yeah.
So I do want to, yeah.
Oh no, I was going to say thanks for everybody for the discussion points. I mean, I didn't want to construct this as like kind of like trying to destroy academia or anything of the sort. But I just I wanted to phrase sort of what I felt was sort of going on and how this was kind of shaping new initiatives and the way I saw it. But yeah, I mean, it's. We can find a place, a home for us all of these wonderful things that people have been saying. Like that's my dream. Like that's my real dream that I hope I can find with all of you. So yeah.
Yeah, thanks. So okay, 2 questions I wanted to ask everyone real quick, practical. We're just gonna have 2 minutes for this. One, so we are organizing a retreat for this CSCSC community. For those who haven't seen the announcement, I had it in the emails, but also I'll just put it in the chat right now. And the question is, currently it is planned for August. So here's the announcement page in the chat if you want to take a look. The intention is basically to be a sort of workshop in person together with this research community and really like talk about, have a conference about complexity science contemplative studies. But, as we are a contemplative community, we don't want to just have a normal academic conference because those are kind of toxic and painful. So, how do we create a better way to do conferencing? So we were kind of thinking about it. We had some discussion in the last community call a month ago, and we had ideas that why don't we dig deeper into what deep personal beliefs and worldviews motivate and drive our research, right? Beyond the stuff that we say on the grants and all of that. And so we came up with this kind of plan where we both get to talk about the research we're doing and also actually like try to honestly share, what are the worldviews and beliefs and values that make us actually ask these particular questions as opposed to all the other questions we could be asking, right? And really kind of have a little bit of a parallel of like the official academic research arc during the conference and also a sort of introspective arc. And the question I wanted to ask is, we are considering possibly moving it to end of September. So currently it's August 10th to 17th. Do people think that end of September would be a worse time than it would end?
It's actually much better for me.
Better end of September? Yeah, who else?
Doesn't really matter. I mean, so many academics take summer off. It's the only thing that makes it hard. But if you're going on a retreat, then isn't that part of your off? So.
Yeah, that's what I kind of thought. I thought if you have teaching duties, then you're kind of can't do September, right? So Joff,
And
you prefer
in September, all the conferences start up again. Other conferences.
So conflicts with other conferences?
Yeah, possibly.
Uh-huh.
I'm just a bit biased because I'll be back in the US during that time, so having to fly out to Europe is.
Yeah, so either time is bad, or do you have a preference?
No. I mean, the original August time is better, but I mean,
Is better.
yeah. But
Okay.
I don't know. Is everybody mostly based in Europe or US?
No, a lot of people said they're in the US, in the East Coast. Okay, interesting. So there's quite a split. Anyone else? But it seems like, okay, September is apparently better than I thought. I thought it would be, everybody would have a strong preference for August. So, okay. And the other question, because basically there's a couple of grants we're applying for, and it would be easier to do September from that perspective. And the other question is, does anyone have any experience with cost action grants from the European Union? The COST is an acronym for European Cooperation in Science and Technology. It's a 4 or 5 year grant, €500,000 for doing exactly what we are already doing, like organizing conferences, bringing people together from different institutions, having calls. And so we're kind of like, that would be a nice thing to apply for.
Could you put that in the chat? I don't, but can you put it in the chat?
Cost.eu. Cost.eu.
Thank you.
Yep. Yeah.
Pavel, is there
because
funding opportunities?
What?
Is there a place where we can easily place funding opportunities?
Probably in Hilo forum, if it's a specific thing.
Yeah, there's a spot on the Hilo. There's I forget the exact category. I'll put it in the chat right now, though.
I think it's called like opportunities, basically. It's a chat.
Yeah, I think so.
Thread. Yeah. For those who aren't on Hilo, that's our forum platform for discussion. Okay, cool. So this is interesting. Okay, so we then might move it. And Tanuja, you say a lot of conferences are in September, but wouldn't they also be worried about people teaching and not being able to attend? Or is that not
Yes, I think they honor the summer off. Most do. And everything comes back in September, October. October is really bad for conferences. So many conferences.
Really? Okay, interesting. But if people teach, they can't attend, right? Or no? Okay, cool.
Well, there's so much virtual education now. Like I mean, it doesn't. I don't think it inhibits everybody. But I see your point. There's more.
Yeah, they get students to guest lecture. They zoom in. They have the TA cover and they juggle. But sometimes it's like compact and you just dip away for a few days and cut the corners. Maybe the retreat is more like you're fully in for like how many days is it right now? 5.
It's five full on, but also arrival and departure. So yeah, 5 days there. But there's also it's 2 weeks back to back. So ideally people could stay for both weeks. So the second week is just deep work, like mindful work retreat, which we're branding as Work Alive. So, okay, cool. So in that case, let's just take a moment maybe to close. So just 1 minute. Let's sit with our spine straight. Close our eyes. Take a deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth, letting go of all the information that we have received, all the thoughts, ideas, letting it integrate in our mind, into our subconscious without needing to control. And perhaps finding a little sense of gratitude, not trying to imagine it or create it, but really finding something that we already are grateful for. Just letting ourselves enjoy that feeling. And also perhaps feeling the togetherness of being here with like-minded people, asking similar questions, working on similar motivations and values, and excited about similar opportunities and possibilities. And with that, let's open our eyes. Thanks all for joining. I'll see you in a month. Reach out if you want to present some of your work at one of these, or join one of the efforts on the grants on cost action. All that will need a big collaboration to apply for that. So if you're open to being part of that. Right.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care.
Bye.
See you guys.
Bye-bye.